this officer was arrested by her own police department for shoplifting while in uniform. This is crazy. So this is Officer Robin Connor. She is 33 years old and she was recently just arrested after being caught shoplifting in uniform.
Police officer has been arrested accused of stealing a pair of shoes while on duty.
Now, Robin Connor, who is 33, served as a police officer in the Columbus Police Department down there in Mississippi. Now, she's been working that job for 2 years. Now, as a police officer, Connor was making about $56,000 a year down there in Columbus, Mississippi. Now, on February 22nd, 2024, while on duty and in uniform, which I think is the most important thing to notate here, Connor pulls up to a Dick's Sporting Goods in her police cruiser, gets out, and she is in full uniform. She walks to the section for shoes and picks up a $140 pair of shoes and does the unthinkable. Decides to just walk out with them without paying. Now, for all you people out there, store security is hard enough, but just imagine having to stop a police officer in full uniform for shoplifting. That's what the security at Dick's Sporting Goods had to do. So they stopped and detained a law enforcement officer in uniform for shoplifting. So now store security had detained this officer and now has called 911 that, hey, one of your officers here and we've detained them for shoplifting. So this was so unusual, so unusual that the police chief responded, the assistant chief, her supervisor, and the captain on duty. They all responded to Dick's Sporting Goods because they couldn't believe that one of their officers was literally caught shoplifting at that time. So the police department arrived around 12:30 to see their police officer detained by store security. The officers looked at the cameras and concluded that yes, this officer, while in uniform with the police car parked outside, tried to shoplift $140 sneakers. So they also then arrested this officer right there on the scene and took her back to jail in her own patrol car. Now, this was even more shocking to her coworkers because this officer was one of those officers who love being an officer. These are her pictures from Facebook where she's taking selfies of herself in uniform, promoting law enforcement and how great it is to be a cop. But unfortunately, she had other plans. Now, this arrest was such an embarrassment for the police department because they're supposed to have these standards of being able to vet people to make sure they're going to be good officers and be endowed with the public trust. The police chief had to come out and essentially explain to the public that, hey, this is a one-time occurrence and this officer is getting the book thrown at them.
We have a job to do. We're held to a higher standard, and the community is just starting to trust us. And to take this gut punch really hurts. That's why we fulfilled our obligation, not only to the store, but to this community.
Now, because of the police union, this officer couldn't be fired on the spot. She was placed on administrative leave until further investigation. But in the meantime, Connor was charged with misdemeanor shoplifting for stealing goods worth less than $1,000. Now, she was taken to the Lowndes County Adult Detention Center and was given a surety bond for $862. Now, because it's a law channel, let me explain to you the difference between a surety bond and a cash bond. A cash bond is just what it sounds like. You have the cash to bail yourself out. Judge says $1,000 bond, you pay $1,000 bond, they hold it, you go to court, and if you make all your court appearances, you get that money back. Now, this is different than a surety bond because not most people have $1,000 to put up for bail, so the court can keep it until their trial is over. So with the surety bond, someone else actually puts that money up for you, typically a bail bondsman, and you would pay a 10% fee. Now, that 10% goes to the bail bondsman. You don't get that back. So instead of putting up the $1,000 on your own and getting back the $1,000 when your trial is over, you essentially would just have to put up $100, 10% of $1,000, and you would not get that $100 back. That would go to the bail bondsman. So in this case, Connor was given this $862 surety bond, which means she's probably put up about $87 to get out of jail. Now, because of the embarrassment of the whole thing, the city council had an emergency meeting where they voted unanimously to fire this officer.
The city council fires a Columbus police officer accused of shoplifting. The city council and the mayor met in a special call meeting today. In a 5-0 vote, the council terminated Robin Connor. Connor is accused of shoplifting a pair of $140 shoes from Dick's Sporting Goods store on Wednesday. Chief Joseph Daughtry says the 33-year-old was on duty in uniform and her police cruiser was parked outside.
Now, this was obviously a no-brainer, right? You can't have an officer in uniform who's just so bold with it to go in and out of places and shoplift. But Dr. Rashad Ritchie wants to make it a racial issue. Remember, the police chief is black, this officer is black, this is a black community. But in some way, Rashad Ritchie has to make it about race. Listen to what he says.
An employee observed them and detained the officer and called 911. We're putting her in jail. It's embarrassing for the department, but we're going to treat her like we would anybody else. Put up a picture again. You know, if she would have just shot an unarmed black person, she would still at least be suspended with pay.
So now, aside from all the obvious race baiting, let's just keep it real. I think this officer has done this before. I think this officer has gone into these shops and picked something up and has not paid for it before. And this is just the time they got caught. Because I just don't understand why an officer would go one time into Dick's Sporting Goods, pick up $140 pair of sneakers, and pretend it's okay to just walk out with it. Now, this officer was very proud too. Again, you're seeing all these Facebook pictures, right? This officer was proud of being an officer, but at the end of the day, didn't have any moral character. And it's essentially an embarrassment for the department. This has nothing to do with race. This has all to do with the content of this person's character. And this person should never wear a uniform again and should never be entrusted with anything from the public. But those are my opinions. What do you feel in the conversation? Do you think I'm being too hard on this officer? I understand people make mistakes in their life, right? But this isn't a mistake. This is someone who is in a position to be trusted by the public. They're an officer, for God's sake. And to do something as silly as shoplift while in uniform, while your patrol car's outside, I think is exactly why you don't want these type of officers on the force, and why I think she should be punished to the full extent of the law. But those are my feelings. What are yours? Let me know in the comment section. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.